Good morning. Today we are doing a lesson for Algebra 2, Algebra 2 Lesson 1.6, which is solving equations with variables on both sides. And remember, you're taking notes on this, and at the top of your notes, be sure to put your header in with your name, period, date, and subject. And as you know, you're going to take those notes in your math notebook. And remember that by Monday you must have that math notebook, either a spiral one or those ones that are similar to this one here. It's a plastic notebook of some kind or other. Okay, very convenient to use. And then you're going to put not only the notes that you see in front of you, these outlines, but my annotations, and also anything that I say that you think is important that you want to add to it. And then when you are done, you'll upload these notes to my email. This is my email address. Okay. All right. And so I know you can start and stop this video, so I'm not going to slow down just to allow you to take a picture of this. You can stop your video at any time. All right. So we're going to be able, or you're going to be able, to solve linear equations and understand what property is used for each step of the solution. And you know, I'm going to tell you that linear equations can look very messy when you first see them. And so what you end up having to do is simplify them before you actually get into the process of isolating the variable and figuring out what the variable is. So for that reason, and for the fact that a lot of these problems also will have decimals and positive and negative numbers, it's extremely important that you use a calculator. So I've got my calculator today, which I'm going to be using along with this. So this is my TI-84 Plus, which is a graphing calculator. It's perfect for these kinds of things, but if you have a scientific calculator, that's fine too. All right, and so this video supports the Algebra 2 IXL Lesson B1, which is solving linear equations. It's just a note. That's where you're going to go to after you're done with this. You're going to open up your IXL Lesson B1, and it's on the lesson link calendar. Often you will find, as I said, that linear equations are more complex looking than what you've encountered, but not to worry. You have to simplify first. You're going to use the order of operations, or PEMDAS, to do that. So we're going to go through this step by step. And then after that equation has been simplified, as I said, you will isolate the variable, which means to get it by itself on one side of the equation. For this, your order of operations is the reverse of PEMDAS, and we call that SADMAP. So PEMDAS, you remember, is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. SADMAP is that in reverse. It's subtraction, addition, division, multiplication, exponents, parentheses. Okay. So we're going to show you 4 examples. This is the simplest one. And they're all linear equations. All right, so the first one is negative 7q equals 18 minus 13q. So you're going to start out, because you notice you've got 2 sets of expressions that have the same variable in them, but they're 2 different ones. You're going to have to combine them. So you're going to have to simplify. You'll have to use some PEMDAS. This is a little bit of both PEMDAS and undoing in a way, because to get something from one side of the equation to the other, you have to actually go through the process of undoing. So that's why I'm showing both of these at the same time. But it's really simplification you're doing. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, all right, if I were to add 13q to both sides, I would eliminate it from the right-hand side and leave the 18. And I think that's the simplest strategy. So I'm going to add them to both sides, and that's what I did here. So that was my step 1. And so step 1, add 13q to both sides. And so when I did that, I eliminated the 13q on the right-hand side of the equation, and I'm left with 6q equals 18. So this is what it looks like first, 6q equals 18. Then step 2, I had to divide to get the q by itself. So divide by 2 on both sides. And remember, with equations, what you do on both one side, you do to the other. Both sides got to be equal. That's why they call them properties of equality. So 18 divided by 6 is 3, and that's the answer. Okay. All right. The next problem is quite a bit more complex. So you see, you have one. You've got an r here, you've got an r here, and you've got an r here on the other side of the equation. So you're going to have to combine those. You can't combine them completely in one fell swoop. What you've got on the left side, though, you can combine. So you can take the negative 15r and the 19r and combine them. And that's really called the commutative property. You're commuting, you're moving stuff around. Because all these expressions are being added together, you can do that and you don't change the value of that side of the equation. So we took the negative 15r and the 19.5r and put them in parentheses, indicating they're to be added together, and then we'll add the 10.44, and that'll equal the 2.8r plus 0.36. All right, so we add, and when we add negative 15.8 plus 15.5, well, let's see what we get. So negative, I'm going to push the negative sign down here at the very bottom, 15.8, and I'm going to add 19.5. And I don't have to worry about the r because the r is in both of them. They'll come along for the right. So I end up with 3.7, and I get 3.7r, and I write it here. So now it's 3.7 plus 10.44 equals 2.8 plus 0.36. So that makes it look a little more simpler. But now it's time to get the r's together. Okay. So this is undoing, and SADMEP, you're going to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 2.8r. And remember, when you're subtracting something that has a variable attached to it, the number and the variable move together. Okay? Don't leave the r there. You get a lot of people that, particularly in Algebra 1, they'll leave the variable. When we're subtracting, you're subtracting the whole expression. So subtract 2.8r on both sides. And when you do it, on the right-hand side, it's eliminated, and you're just left with 0.36. Over here, 3.7r minus 2.8r is, well, use your calculator. So that's 3.7 minus 2.8, and you get 0.9, so 0.9r. So here's our expression, 0.9r plus 10.44 equals 0.36. Now this looks like just an ordinary undoing thing. We've got to get rid of the 10.44 first. According to SADMEP, we would subtract first, so we would do that on both sides. That eliminates the 10.44 from the left side of the equation. And then we're going to have to take our calculator, start out with, I'm just going to type 0.36 because the 0 is really not necessary when it's to the left of the decimal point. And then I'm going to subtract 10.44. Now, some people wonder why sometimes I use the negative sign at the bottom and sometimes I use the subtraction sign. If I'm dealing with the first term and the first term is negative, I have to use the negative sign button at the bottom, this one down here. Then the second term, it's assumed to be subtraction. The only exception to that is if I'm told to multiply two numbers together and the second number is a negative number. So I'll have to put the number in parentheses after I show multiplication and press the negative sign, type the number, and then close the parentheses, and then my answer will correctly calculate it. So this is 0.36 minus 10.44, so that's negative 10.08. And so you'll notice I wrote that there, and I brought down the 0.9. So this is the way it would look. And then the last thing I would do is I would want to divide out the 0.9 on both sides. So I did that. That's the last step. and you divide by 0.9 on both sides. So here's an example of I need to put the numerator. It starts out negative, so I'm going to type the negative sign at the bottom. I just did. And then I'm going to write or type 10.08. And then division in these calculators is just the fraction sign in calculators is division. So you just click the fraction button here, and that gives you the division button, and that gives you the fraction sign. And then you type in 0.9 or 0.9. You hit enter, and you get a negative 11.2. So that's what R is. Now, I did a quick check of this one because, and frankly, I would suggest that you check all of them. But I did this one just to illustrate, and I'm not going to do it on the last two problems. But I want to make sure that you understand that you should check these, because you can easily make a mistake when you got all these negative numbers and decimals and things involved. So what I'm going to do is take the original equation and I'm going to replace or substitute negative 11.2 for R. So here's negative 15.8 up here at the top. Down here I rewrote negative 15.8, and then instead of the R, which you see with my finger on the left, I wrote in 11.2 times negative 11.2. So that's plus 10.44 plus 19.5, and it was R, so that's times the negative 11.2. And then my equation got a little long, so that equals, and on the other side of the equation, it was 2.8 times R, and so that's times negative 11.2 plus 0.36. Then I took my calculator, I multiplied negative 15.8 times negative 11.2. So that would have been an example where I would have had to, well, this is a negative times a negative. It might be easier if you just multiplied it together as a positive, because you know negative times negative is positive. So you could take 15.8, multiply it times 11.2, and you get 176.96. The other way to do it is with your calculator. You start out with negative, so you type the negative sign at the bottom again, negative 15.8, and then that's multiplied times. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put multiplies, and then I got to do negative 11.2. Well, I don't want a negative multiplication and negative sign together, so I have to put a parentheses there, and then go to the bottom, click the negative sign, type 11.2. So you see it says negative 11.2 and close the parentheses. That way you avoid the multiplication sign getting fouled up with a negative sign. It'll go give you an error message. And you'll notice you get the same number, 176.96, which is what's down here. All right, so then we had the 10.44, I just brought it over. And then I took the 19.5, I multiplied that by negative 11.2, and I got negative 218.4. And then I multiplied 2.8 times negative 11.2, and I got 31. That's a 1 there. 31.36. Okay. And then I had the 0.36 to add to that. So now I simplify. I just simply took my calculator. I added 176.96 to 10.44, and then from that I subtracted 218.4, and you see I come up with negative 31. I'm sorry, positive 31. Positive 31. Oh, I'm sorry, it is negative 31. Negative 31. And this is negative 31.16. And this is positive 0.36, so that's negative 31. So you see that both sides, the answer is negative 31. It checks, and so you're good. Okay? All right. Now let's go to the third one. And the third one is negative 12x plus 16 equals negative 5 minus 15 plus 6x. So in this case, it's not so much a complexity as the other problem, but let's just go quickly through this. I can't do anything on the left-hand side because negative 12x and 16 cannot be combined. But I can combine negative 5 and negative 15. So I'm going to simplify. And again, negative 5 and negative 15, you're adding two negatives together. Negative, let's clear that. Negative, I'm pressing the negative sign at the bottom. 5 minus, I'm going to use the subtraction sign for the second one. And it shows you just you're adding them together and you get negative 20. So this is negative 20 now. And then we're going to bring down the 6x. And over here we're going to bring down the negative 12x plus 16 and the equal sign. All right, so now we need to combine. And since I just happen to like positive numbers multiplied to my variable, and I see I can do it here, I'm going to add 12x to both sides. And notice this time around I'm not going to go through and write what's going on because we've been doing that. And so this should be pretty much all you need to do now. So the negative 12x and the positive 12x cancel. You bring down the 16. And over here, you bring down the negative 20. And 6x plus 12x is 18x. Okay. All right. So now I want to get the x by itself. So the first thing I got to do, according to SADMAP, is I would subtract. So I would add 20 to both sides. And 20 plus 16 is 36. Now I can do this in my head. This is easy. And you should be able to too. But you can use the calculator if you want. And so 36 equals 18x. And then I divide by 18 on both sides because SADMAP would say you would, with multiplication, the opposite is divide. And 36 divided by 18 is 2. Because 2 times 18 is 36 going the other way. 18 divided by 18 is 1. 1 times x is x. So my answer is x equals 2. So I will leave it to you to check this on your own. Okay? So there you have the third one. All right. The last one is, you notice this 4 is multiplied to two terms that are in parentheses here. This is a distribution problem. So we've been doing distribution. So you can see that's part of multi-step problems, just like all the other things we've been doing. And so we want to simplify first. And of course that's PEMDAS. And we would do what was in parentheses first according to PEMDAS, but remember the first, well, not remember, but remember variables cannot be added to numbers that don't have variables. So this is unlike. And so the next thing we'd do is we would distribute because that's multiplication. So multiply. So 4 times negative 3, we'd be multiplying it to the negative 3, not to the a. The a stays by itself and comes along for the ride, and we'll multiply the 4 times negative 0.14. Well, 4 times negative 3, that's easy. That's negative 12, so negative 12a. Now, let's do 4 times 4 times, and then negative 0.14. So I'm going to have to put that in parentheses again because I've got my multiplication sign there, and I cannot have it sit next to a negative sign. So parentheses, and then I go down to the negative sign at the bottom, and I type in 0.14. You don't need the 0 that's to the left of the parentheses, remember. Click enter, and you get negative 0.56. So minus or negative 0.56, and that equals negative 9.2a. All right, so now the best thing to do, I think, is to add the negative 12a to the negative 9.2a. And so, of course, the opposite of that, this is undoing now. So we're going to use SADMAP. We have no parentheses. we have a negative 0.56 that we could add to both sides, but that doesn't get the a's together. So we really needed to go ahead and add the a's together. So that's addition, right? So I'm going to add 12a to both sides. And 12a is actually 12.0a, so 12.0a minus 9.2a. Negative 12a is eliminated on the left. You bring down 0.56, or negative 0.56. And then I got a negative 9.2a and positive 12a. So I'm going to, again, ignore the a's because they come along for the ride, and I'm just going to take negative 9.2, and I'm going to add that to 12 or 12.0. You can do it either way. So let's just do 12.0 just for the heck of it. Hit enter, and you'll notice you get 2.8, and that's positive. Okay, so positive 2.8, which makes sense, and then bring the a along for the ride. Now, so I added. Now I've got this is multiplying. I've multiplied 2.8 times a, so I want to divide according to SADMAP. So I'm going to divide 2.8 from both sides. All right, so obviously the 2.8 on the right-hand side divided by the 2.8 is 1, because any number divided by itself is 1, and 1 times a is a. But negative 0.56 divided by 2.8 is negative 0.2. Okay, so negative 0.2. All right, so that's the answer for that, and that takes us to the end of our work. Again, you can check this, but you can see you need a calculator, and you need a calculator. All right, okay, have a great one. We'll let you go. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.